Um, anyways, got it. All right. I don't have a ton of updates for you all for the VBI70 keg meeting tonight. One of the things I was going to go over, and this was based on a conversation that David Dorian, Casey Becker, Chuck Norris, and Rachel Lehman had on November 1st, was some of the resources that I have presented in the past and have kind of more or less campaign for this keg take advantage of is for both facilitation and technical assistance going forward. Um, and we'll start with technical assistance. One of the things that I think both the tag and EPA would and CTPHE would benefit greatly from is having a facilitator help facilitate these meetings, not only just these meetings, but facilitate um, developing agendas, topics, things like that. So we're all kind of coming into these meetings together, knowing what we're going to discuss and presentation materials, and can really help structure these meetings in a way that would be beneficial for everyone here, and then and also for anyone that comes up from outside of the or from the community that isn't part of this keg as well. To that end, with facilitation, I have set up a kind of a kickoff meeting with our Conflict Resolution and Prevention Center at EPA through our headquarters office in Washington, D.C. And basically, what we do there is try to put together a task order, kind of identifying what are the facilitation needs. And then they put together kind of a contract in which certain facilitators get to bid, whether they on taking on facilitating a community advisory group. And timing wise, that meeting with our headquarters folks, I think, is next week or the following week. And then those task orders are pretty quick to, once we, figure out the services needed, they're pretty quick to put out to bid and get a like a neutral facilitator brought in. And then a lot of times the facilitator will work with the community advisory group to find out their needs, and how they want to structure the meetings, and then also work with us saying, this is what we've heard from the CAG. This is, how I would like to structure things. So it provides a really good opportunity for us to kind of structure these in a way that hasn't had that kind of traditional CAG structure in the past. So as we move through that process and through those task orders, I'll definitely, myself and Ryan will be kind of sharing the information that we put together, and then especially in terms of the substance of the task order and what the CAG facilitator can and can't do, I'll be kind of sharing that information with you all, hopefully kind of as it comes in, to make sure that, if this is something you want, to make sure that your needs are identified in this task order, so that, headquarters knows, and then any facilitator that they have on the contract could bid for it knows that as well. So trying to be fully transparent in exactly what that task order will look like, and the information, I'll share that with you all as it kind of moves forward. So just any questions on that? Hearing none. So more information to come. The second part was, I think that both Rachel and Chuck and David, you're on the line, you might be able to speak to more of this since I wasn't at that meeting, is also technical assistance needs for the CAG. And there's kind of two options: TAG grants and technical assistance services for communities. TAG grants are a little tricky right now. I always try to get CAGs and community groups to go through the technical assistance services for communities. But that's not to say a community group, I'm not trying to say a community group can't apply for a technical assistance grant. There's just a lot more requirements for that grant, and kind of oversight as well that the recipient needs to adhere to. In addition, a technical assistance grant needs to be awarded to a group that is 501c3, a nonprofit group that's up, that's already kind of in standing or a good standing as well. And they're competitive grants. That's saying like if a group wants to put a letter of intent to apply for a technical assistance grant, EPA has to advertise that and also solicit other community groups to apply for that same grant as well, or give other community groups the opportunity to apply for that grant as well. The technical assistance services for communities, it's an EPA contract, a national contract. We contract through a company called SKIO to hire technical assistance for communities, and a lot of the services they provide are CAG and community specific. And I think in a part of that is they do what's called a technical assistance needs assessment. So they'll do independently, the contractor will, SKIO, and we did this very recently up at a site in Montana in Columbia Falls. A series of interviews, meetings, and a lot of times EPA isn't present at these, which I think allows for a lot more, kind of open dialogue between community members and and the contractors that do these community interviews to help decipher what are the actual technical assistant needs at a certain community group, where we are in the Superfund process, and going forward. So I put that out there as I'm willing to again have our headquarters office start putting something like this together if this is what the CAG wants or needs. And sometimes I think it allows for the CAG to also help us identify other major community members that aren't coming to the meetings, be involved in kind of identifying the technical assistance needs at a community or at a CAG. And so those were the kind of technical assistance stuff that I was going to presenting on now, and kind of updates, and kind of I fully plan to work with our headquarters office when Ryan gets back as well next month, kind of full steam ahead on those things. So any questions on that? I see David, you have your hand up.
Yes, just got to find the unmute button on this version of Zoom. Hi, everybody. I'm David Dorian. As Chris mentioned, I'm spending time as Casey Becker's special assistant, and I was fortunate that I got to meet a few weeks ago with Chuck and Rachel. But Chris, I was wondering, when you talk about technical services, which can be so valuable, if you could offer some examples, what things you've seen, and one thing that I just sort of noticed in my, I'm very new to the group, so forgive me, and I don't necessarily know history here of things you've already discussed, but some of the things that were discussed in our meeting referred to historic actions that were taken on the site that go back over a decade. And so I would think that someone in a technical services role would be able to mine past reports and summarize them to offer more specific information about a concern that will be raised. So Chris, that's one thought I have. Maybe you could address that specifically. You think would be a valid place for technical services, and any other examples you might have?
Sure. So kind of two examples I have, one I just briefly mentioned on the Columbia Falls. There's a Columbia Falls aluminum reduction company site up in Columbia Falls, Montana, where we just went through this. But the other site you all may be aware of is Colorado Smelter, where we've used both the technical assistant needs assessment and the technical assistance services for communities. Now, and Janine, feel free to hop in as well, because I think I left the site as that was just getting started. So you might have more specifics on how that has worked or how it is going. But basically we have, like I said, with SKIO, an independent contractor that really comes in and tries to understand what are the specific needs of a CAG to understand what's going on a site, but also understanding the needs on how the CAG wants to communicate to the broader public. So what deliverables can they produce based on site documents? It also allows, the CAG to have, ample time to, as we're developing site documents, to have this contractor work with the CAG kind of independently of EPA to understand, what's going to be in this document, and then when it comes out, to help them understand it and then provide any questions or feedback um, towards the agencies as well. Um, and I think specifically also for Columbia Falls, where we've just kicked this off, and we're expecting the technical assistant needs assessment, the TANA, to come back from our contractor in the next few months. They did the community interviews, arranged for the interviews, reached out to people independently of EPA. We gave them suggestions, but they really do their own kind of sleuthing to try to kind of create a total kind of independent analysis. And I think that's really beneficial for both the community and EPA. Kind of helps provide some trust and separation, if that makes sense. Kind of it brings a kind of a neutral document to the table saying, hey, EPA, this is what we're hearing from the community, and community, here's what we're hearing from EPA, what they can provide. And then bring in a facilitator to kind of help facilitate um, those interactions and those discussions. And I know I'm speaking broadly here because I haven't had, full on direct how it's gone. What are some of the cons, or, what's worked well and what hasn't. And it's hard to put like what's worked well and what hasn't from one group and then putting it onto another group. But I haven't seen where it's gone like completely off the rails or hasn't worked. It's just different for every community that we work in. I don't know if Janine, if you wanted to add anything from Colorado Smelter that I may have missed, or if not, that's fine. I don't mean to
Oh,
put you on the
no,
spot.
I think it's really important that something that that the technical assistance services for communities helped with Colorado Smelter was helping the community both understand why sampling was being done in the area the way it was being done, why it was being done that way, and how the data is being interpreted. And because it's some people still don't agree with it, but at least they understand it. And I think that's been kind of a situation here that applies to Vasquez Boulevard I-70. Why is it that this is this? Why is it that we're not cleaning everything in the area up to some kind of pristine level? That kind of thing. So they try to put not only to help folks understand it, but to put it in context. For everybody, for EPA, for the community. And if there are still lingering questions, they bring those back to the agencies and say, okay, so can we help you? Is there something we can do to help the community and the agencies get on the same page on this too? So they've done a lot of good work, and they continue to do a lot of good work with the Smelter Superfund site.
Thank you, Janine.
Sure.
So any other questions on that? And more, and if you don't have them here or people want to submit them later or suggestions, that's totally fine as well. It's a very fluid and open process, or hope to keep it that way. Seeing none. So the other couple announcements I wanted to make, and I kind of made these at the beginning of the meeting, so some people might have heard them, some not. So the community involvement coordinator, Ryan Cloberdans, you all may know, is out on paternity leave. So I've been kind of filling in ad hoc for him. And there's been a fair amount of change at EPA through our remedial program, specifically project managers kind of shifting around. Kind of two reasons. Jesse Aviles, the former project manager for this site, took a job in Washington, D.C. at our headquarters office. And so the remedial program's been working to backfill that and find a project manager for this site going forward. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here tonight, nor the new section chief. So the you might all know Steve Wharton. He moved on to a new position. So Jamie Miller, who was one of the project managers at Colorado Smelter, filled his role, and then Becky Geyer, who was an on-scene coordinator, which deals with a lot of our emergency response efforts in the region, is going to be the project manager for this site. Her official start date is, I think, right at the beginning of 2023. And so she'll have a learning curve like anyone coming onto the site. But I think one of the things, and David could probably knows her a little bit more than I do, She's really good at kind of listening, empathetic towards community members' needs, and I think will be a really good kind of shift in terms of project manager skills at this site going forward. And then my goal as the community involvement um, manager, as I'm hiring a lot of community involvement coordinators as well, is to potentially have another community involvement coordinator help Ryan out on this site, because Ryan has a lot of other sites that he works on as well. And so I'm working on that hiring process now, and just with the federal ways we do hiring, sometimes it takes a while. So I wouldn't expect to have someone else on this site until the middle of the winter. Sometimes hopefully things move faster, but just kind of being realistic with that. So any questions on those updates? Hearing none. So that's kind of the I guess the big updates from EPA. And I sent out some solicitations from the CAG or to the CAG for us for any other agenda topics that they wanted covered. And I know, Chuck, you sent around anything on the OU3 Beta Fox development, or if there's any other questions that potentially we can have a discussion here. It's basically kind of like an open Q&A at this point, because I don't have any other agenda topics right now. Or this might be a quick meeting. Understanding it's the holiday week as well. All right.
I have one, sorry, about you were mentioning hiring CICs. Do you have a time frame on that? You might have mentioned it, Renee.
I wish I did, but a lot of it is, through how we do hiring at EPA is I get the kind of hiring certificate with the applicants that applied, and I've done kind of first round interviews, and now going through reference checks. And then once I make a selection, there's a lot of onboarding processes that have to be done, especially if they're coming from a non-federal background. Background checks can take up to a couple months sometimes, and before they can't come on board before those have been completed and adjudicated. So it's really hard to understand when an applicant would get us an official start date. That start date's actually offered out of our shared service center, which is based in Cincinnati. So our shared service center really handles a lot of EPA's human resources issues like hiring, personnel, things like that. So I'm just actually kind of in the hiring, I'm just a small cog in the whole process of things.
Thanks.
Hey, Chris, I know that Denver's consultant has completed sampling. Is there any word from when they're going to be able to put a report together to present to the CAG?
I haven't heard anything. Let me take that note down and bring it back to our remedial folks. Aaron Urdialis might be the best person to answer that. He's our remedial branch manager. But good question. So I'll get back to you all on that.
The reason being, obviously, that those results would be something that the CAG would probably be very interested in seeing, and kind of from there. So I know they were asking me about certain things, about some candidate out procedures and stuff like that. So, but I believe if they're not finished, they should pretty much almost be finished, and it'd be nice to kind of get a time frame when they think they'd be able to put a report together. That's all.
Okay. Thanks, Fonda.
Sure.
This is Chuck Norris. Fonda, I did not hear what sampling you said you thought was finished.
Oh, the vbi70 OU2 supplemental sampling that they're doing for Denver.
This is for the expanded or revised or whatever remedial investigation for OU2?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, since we hadn't, at least I hadn't heard that sampling had even started yet. Thank you for sharing that information, and certainly the sooner I can look at what that sampling has, the better. I appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions, comments tonight? And my apologies for sending out a notice on getting the date wrong on the 29th. I'll make sure myself and Ryan do better next time. And I'll send out we don't make a decision here. I can send out an email just asking if we wanted to hold a December meeting. And I don't know, maybe that decision was already made. So that would be what, December 20th? 27th. So I'll send out a note after this meeting to see if we still want to hold that or not, given that it's just a few days after Christmas. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions, comments. If anyone has any, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Janine or Shannon or Fonda. Thank you for taking the time for joining tonight. I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes if anyone else has any other things that pop up, but
Hey,
that's all we have.
Chris, Bonnie's hand is up and so is mine. But I would defer to Bonnie.
Sorry, yeah, I couldn't see. Go ahead, Bonnie.
You're
On
muted.
mute.
Bonnie.
Thank you. I just wanted to know, Chris, if it's possible for us to be on, or me, however you want to handle it, to be on the notification list, because we're still interested in how this CAG is moving forward. And
Yeah,
we got this notice from Bridget. And so I'm really glad that we did. I'm still interested in what happens on this group. And so I'd appreciate it if we could be notified.
Yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking. And Janine, I know your hand was up, and I saw Adrian, you're back on, so I don't know if you still had a question from the beginning you wanted to ask.
So I just wanted to clarify, judging from the resounding response you got from the notifications about this meeting, do you want to, when you send your notification out about the December meeting, and that is in the week between Christmas and New Year's, just to make that perfectly clear, when most people are relaxing in a turkey or ham coma and all that kind of thing, or just playing with family, enjoying family. Do you want to put a deadline about hearing from people about whether they think there's some point to the 27th of December when your project manager isn't going to be up to speed either? I'm just feeling like that's really, most of my sites are not even doing their usual meetings in the month of December. Just one is, and theirs is the second week, and after that it's quiet. So maybe putting a deadline on it, or I don't know how you want to handle it, but be more definitive. If we don't get yes, we must have a meeting, we have to have updates, then updates are going to come. We don't have too many updates.
Right. Now I'll put a deadline on there, and I'll also maybe tie it into just asking on the OU2 sampling if we have anything to share on that, because that might spur some interest, and we could also present the same stuff on different months too. If people really want to meet in December, and some people can, and people want to meet in January but couldn't meet in December, but we have the same information, that's fine too. But in my notice, I'll definitely put a deadline on, need to hear from you all folks from, let me just think about it, and, second week, first week of December, and make a decision from there. Thanks for that. Anything else? And Adrian, I'll ask you one more time if you had anything to add from your hand being raised earlier. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for your time tonight. Sorry for the short meeting, but please enjoy Thanksgiving. Be safe, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Same to you all.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you.
Take care.
Adrian, did you have something? I see you're there again, but you're muted.
I don't think
Can't
his
hear him.
audio is working.
Oh,
Yeah.
he can't think. Okay. You want to chat about it? Do you want to write it up? Okay, go ahead. He says.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Thanks
Bye.
all.
Happy Thanksgiving. People.